Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it raw.
Well, I picked 3 photos as you suggested that probably not more would work, and I think there is a kind of story.
Yeah.
At least I think that I have a story to link all those all the 3 photos together. The first one is just the picture taken in North Pacific. I think it was 2016 or 17 by one of our volunteers, sailors.
Wow.
And the idea actually is coming from our partners from the Ocean Voyaging Society, Mary Crowley, and she's passionate about cleaning the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
I like the ocean as well,
Mm-hmm.
and we are trying to help on the science part. So back to the first picture. This is just to show what can you find floating in the ocean.
Mm.
Of course, now there are zillions of similar pictures, even more scary than this one.
Mm.
And essentially, my point or what I would want to convey through these images, ocean is in trouble
Mm-hmm.
because of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not helping the marine life.
Yeah.
And we should do something about it. So that's the primary motivation of why I picked this picture.
I'm with you 1,000%. So I need to describe the photograph for listeners, which it's a podcast, which is audio, and who knows. But okay, so the image is utterly beautiful, right? So it's aesthetically, it's an incredible image, and yet there's something otherworldly and disturbing about it. So the color tone is very cold white, and the black is very bluish. So the tone of the photo is it leans on the blue side, and it's the photographer or the diver is photographing up to a sky that is probably overcast while they're diving. And above them is this mess of what looks like to be nylon rope. It could have been a net, a ghost net that just got all tangled up in itself. And all around it are various species of what looks like reef fish. Maybe about, I don't know, a good 50 or so fish, roughly from the size of a tennis ball to the size of a large loaf of bread. Maybe they're bigger. So yeah, it definitely conveys like the mess of ropes. Looks like almost a beautiful sculpture of this very strange thing floating close to the surface, and around it are all these fish. But it definitely conveys this tension and the issue of we just have garbage floating around in the ocean, and it's under the surface, so we don't see it. So luckily we have somebody there to photograph it. So what else would you like to share about this photo?
Well, actually, there are 2 similar pictures like that, showing the floating stuff in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And but as I said, one part of the message and why I picked those pictures is just to show what's happening to the oceans.
Yeah.
And the second part, probably I might go through the second
later
picture
to
get to the whole thing, what is our science.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, let's start from the beginning. As we suggested, we have this stuff dumping in the ocean for decades already, since the invention of the plastic, which happened sometimes in 1950s on a massive scale. And actually, this picture doesn't show the whole problem because I had only 3 pictures to show. This is the big stuff, and it's kind of easy to understand. And if you look on the second picture, you can even see it floating on the surface, not necessarily under the surface of the water. But also, there is a small stuff we do not normally see unless we would use some nets, and we would sample, and we would kind of like scoop through the water on the surface, and with a very fine filter we can capture the other spectrum, those very small particles of plastic.
Mm-hmm.
And we might, not normally, because it's not as easy to see if you are on a deck on any boat, you probably won't even notice it.
Yeah.
But it has impact on marine life, as you can imagine. Those are little pieces, maybe like 1 millimeter, 2 millimeter,
Mm-hmm.
or even smaller. And it is ingested by the small marine life, like small fish. And of course, by the process, we call it biomagnification or bioaccumulation. It progressively gets up to the through the food chain, up to the big fish like a tuna or mahi, and of course, all that's plastic is loaded with organic chemicals. I think they are called plasticizers.
Mm-hmm.
They are changing the quality, or they are changing the property of the particular product and particular plastic, and of course they are reaching into the water. And if they are in this, inside fish, inside of tuna, obviously they are reaching into the tissues.
Yeah.
And then we already have a problem with the mercury. Probably that's accumulated in the marine life, and there was a big issue quite some time ago with mercury pollution in the ocean.
Yeah.
And now, in addition, we have this plastic. Well, if we are going all the way back to the beginning, the issue of marine debris was there since the beginning of the oceans. But the difference is, before invention of plastic, most of the marine debris was just natural stuff. You can imagine if you have a big torrential rain and you have a flash flood, it would sweep timber through the rivers into the ocean. That's the natural wood.
Yeah.
And that's how actually some marine life spread from one continent to isolated islands through rafting. I think it's called rafting, that they jump onto this marine debris piece and they are transported from one place to another. However, as I said, the problem with plastic is natural materials, they naturally decay after some time. You cannot expect the wood would last forever in the ocean. But the plastic is just the opposite. It's designed to very last.
Last very long.
Very long. Exactly. Thank you. Well, just to give you some idea how long they can last, in 1970s, NOAA did some experiments. They released plastic cards with inscriptions.
Okay.
And the idea was to study the currents, kind of passive way, and whoever would find them would report back to NOAA. It was in 70s. Right. They are still being found today.
Wow.
So it's 50 years.
Yeah.
And so far, all the estimates on how long the plastic can last in an environment is based on laboratory tests.
Yeah.
And so far, any plastic ever made is probably still intact somewhere, either in landfill or floating in the ocean.
Yeah. So Jan, okay. So here's what's interesting to me, because we just meet. You have your whole story that's led you through your life, and you're working in Hawaii, which is one of the... Sorry about that. Just the neighbors are a little bit loud. It'll be edited out. But okay, so Hawaii has this presence, this mythology, this reputation, this place culturally in the world where people are connected to the oceans in a way that we don't see most other places. So why don't you tell us the story of how you got there? From my eyes, you live a privileged life. You know, you live a beautiful life in which you can go and dedicate your energy and your time and your attention from one of the most remarkable places in the world. So how did you end up there?
As you mentioned, I'm from Czech Republic, which is a landlocked country, and we do not have the ocean.
Uh-huh.
Last time we had access to the ocean was when my grandma was little, under the Austrian-Hungarian Empire.
Okay.
But it's all gone. So I always, even though I have not seen it as a kid, I always liked the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And the first chance to see ocean I got when I was in mainland at school in Gulf of Mexico. But then, in 1999, I went to the conference here. It was a NASA project, and I got a chance to come for 2 days. And I love the ocean and the landscape in Hawaii here so much, so I decided to simply come here.
Nice.
for good.
Wow.
And it happened 2 years later.
Okay. And so what did you study? What's your career?
Well, my background is in atmospheric science,
Wow.
and that's essentially what I do more or less here now, because I don't work only on one particular issue on marine debris, which is the realm of physical oceanography.
Yeah.
But also on other projects related to climate change, and so forth. So that's my background.
Okay. I'm really happy to have met you. So in 2000,
Likewise.
So it's quite interesting. So for example, there's something interesting about people who are landlocked, who somehow gravitate to dedicating themselves to marine and ocean life. So, for example, there are many Canadians who grew up in Toronto, for example, who grew up in Montreal, like myself. The closest ocean is hundreds or thousands of kilometers away. So it's quite interesting that there's something with the ocean that profoundly affects, I think, people. It's hard not to be moved, I think, by seeing how big it is and how, we only see the surface. So we have to work very hard to appreciate what's under the surface. And so there's the headlines of microplastics, and then the macroplastic, for example. What would you say is the greatest source of the large plastic that we see in the ocean?
Well, let me put it this way. I think there are two major sources: land-based and ocean-based. And what you've seen in those pictures is mostly ocean-based. That means it's coming from the fisheries. That's all derelict fishing gear, lines and nets.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the whole story. Land-based is probably even bigger in terms of weight, but it's so spread out. It's not only the microplastic, the pieces we barely can see, but you have pieces of consumer plastic, like wrappings or bottles, and those usually end up on beaches or are breaking down until there are those small pieces floating in the ocean.
Right.
And now the question is how to do about it.
Yeah.
And the simplest solution is to stop the influx.
Right.
I'm saying simplest, but it's not that simple.
No, it really isn't. Because
even with the recycling, with everything, there are always accidents.
Sure.
You have the garbage can. If you close it, everything, and that's the same like with traffic. You have a traffic laws to prevent the accidents. Accidents happens no matter what. Look on the safest industry in the world, nuclear energy, and we had so many accidents already.
Yeah.
So that would happen. Yeah.
Sure.
However, we can do a little bit more to stop stuff coming into the ocean from land.
Right.
And the easiest way is just to put some capturing devices in the big rivers, and that would reduce the inflow.
Okay.
Regarding the ocean-based, that's mostly fisheries, and that's difficult to... I don't have a clear idea how the fisheries actually work. I've never been on a fishing boat,
Okay.
and I don't know what is the
Well, I think
what is their angle.
Well, I think the issue of the ghost nets. So I mean, really, a fishing boat goes out. They just drag or release huge nets that damage, get caught, get stuck, whatever. So they just cut and free them, and then they've got this huge net that is essentially a means of capturing fish. That, you know, it's a really counterintuitive idea that fish caught in a net can drown and die, and so that's one of the impacts. But then, as you say, these nets are also just like the plastic themselves, which are toxic, float, stay, leach out their chemicals, but also break down either because of sunlight or whatever, or just actual physical damage and become microplastics. And it just, in total, just becomes that much more of a major issue. Now, you'd suggested before that the next image relates to this. So would you like to go to the next image? Or do you want to say some more about this image here now?
Well, let's go to the next one.
So is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So if you like what you've seen and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share.
Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it raw.